Hello and welcome to the Legal Edition. I'm your host, Attorney Mary Kay Loyan. Our topic today, Epstein, institutional betrayal, and the American system of justice. Our guest is Marci A. Hamilton. She's a professor of practice in political science at the University of Pennsylvania, and she is also the co-chair of Common Ground for Common Good, conducting research on religion. Professor Hamilton is also the founder of Child USA, a nonprofit academic think tank dedicated to interdisciplinary evidence-based research to improve the laws and public policy and to end child abuse and neglect. She is recognized as one of the nation's foremost experts on clergy sex abuse and child sex abuse statutes of limitations. She is the author of several books, including Justice Denied: What America Must Do to Protect Its Children, which advocates for elimination of child sex abuse statutes of limitation. Professor Hamilton is also a leading national critic of extreme religious liberty and the author of God versus Gavel, The Perils of Extreme Religious Liberty, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. She also had the privilege of clerking for the first female Supreme Court Justice, Sandra Day O'Connor. Let's welcome Professor Marci Hamilton. Welcome, Professor Hamilton.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, the Epstein files are in the news every day, and every day something more troubling is revealed. Now, I know you have been instrumental in child abuse cases, sex abuse cases, and in setting precedent with statutes of limitation and working with legislators. But what we see going on is it seems unprecedented at the level that it is and the scope that it is. Now, how does all your training expertise, what do you see with regards to the Epstein file, the fact that things are being hidden, and particularly the potential scope of this?
So this is a trafficking ring that we have not seen in the United States at this level, with the billionaires and the millionaires and the girls that are groomed and brought from homes where there is need, where there are problems, girls from overseas that have dreams, and this all these powerful men, just their presence persuades them that they might as well do what they're told to do. So it is ugly, but it is unprecedented at this level of society. And, you know, the only reason we know what we do is because of the statutes of limitations. We were able to open both the Child Victims Act in New York, which meant a lot of these victims were able to come forward, but also the Adult Survivors Act, which, of course, opened the door for E. Jean Carroll, but it also opened the door for some of the victims who were over 18.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that window still open for some of them? Could you explain who might it be open for at this time, and if you believe they may reopen it more widely?
Well, the Child Victims Act and the Adult Survivors Act, which are statewide, have closed. The Gender Motivated Violence Act is open in New York City, but that's for only crimes that took place in the city. And so I think that the state of New York will be one of the leaders to enact what we call a permanent window.
You think they're going to expand it? The legislature will expand this?
I think of all the states, New York is likely to be the next one to permanently open the window and just let these civil lawsuits go forward. Already Maryland has done it, and Maine. It's time.
Now, what about the criminal? Can there be state prosecutions? Because what we're seeing right now is the federal government, very lackadaisical, if not ignoring completely the survivors. So what can states do on a criminal end to prosecute some of these pedophiles?
So the reason that we ended up focusing on civil statute of limitations reform is because for criminal SOLs, if they expire, you can't revive them. So for many of these crimes, because New York has had very short statutes of limitations on the criminal side, for many of the crimes, the SOL is expired. So now, with respect to the federal government, there are more options, more possibilities. But they did, Chuck Schumer just announced a bill that would open the statute of limitations at the federal level even more. So, this movement is going to continue to go forward, and there will be more capable of coming forward. But right now, really the safest game legally is to be able to file these lawsuits, and it just depends on the state whether or not they have a good statute of limitations.
What about the crimes that happened on Epstein's Island? How does that fit in?
That's difficult because it's the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the statutes of limitations aren't as good, but also it's a different set of prosecutors. And one of the political problems in the USVI is that they don't want to look. Yes, sorry, U.S. Virgin Islands. They don't want to look bad, and so they have not done nearly as much as they should have done with respect to the prevention of trafficking.
Because I was just reading today that one of the women who came forward, I think her name was Bryant. She was trafficked from South Africa under the guise of a modeling commitment, and then she was brought to New York, and then she was taken to Epstein Island, where she was literally kidnapped because it was all under false pretense, everything, and she couldn't get off the island. She was stuck there.
Yep, and it happened again and again and again, and this whole pretense in Ukraine, South Africa, Asia, all over the world, they would approach girls and say, we have contact.
Mm-hmm. So they would tell these girls they had a contract for them. They would approach them, and they would come. They get them visas and whatever was necessary, and then they were trafficked.
Right. They buy them new clothes, new makeup, make them feel special, and then they would either land in New York, Palm Beach, down in USVI, or New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And these were, the adult brain does not fully develop till 25. These are all under 25 human beings who were going after a dream.
Yeah, they're going after a dream, and it ended up being a nightmare.
A complete nightmare, destroying their lives.
Yeah. So now I know they want to investigate in, I think it's New Mexico. I believe that's where Epstein had his other ranch, and there's some suspicion there could be some bodies buried potentially there. Now, if the federal government doesn't act, can the state of New Mexico do something themselves?
Absolutely. So the state is sovereign. It has its own criminal law. It can investigate. It should investigate. Florida should have done a major investigation. And because so many of Florida's girls were drawn into it. And these were girls who were from homes where they needed help. The idea of earning money for just a massage seemed just fabulous to them. And they would be one time at Epstein's house and they would be compromised and stuck.
And of course, we know that many of them were minors and they couldn't consent, because I've heard people say, well, they consented. No, you can't consent legally if you're under 18.
No.
So it would be statutory rape. Yeah,
that's right. Well, and the other part of it is when the power differential is so huge, even a 21-year-old, a 22-year-old, the consent is a legal question, but psychologically, it's really hard to say that they have consented to this kind of abuse.
Mm-hmm. They're not savvy enough to understand this world of abuse and subjugation. Now, I know you've also done a lot with clergy and clergy abusing. Are there any similarities that you see there versus what you see here in the Epstein case?
So it's actually extraordinary because I've now written a few of my columns about you can track the way the Trump administration is trying to do the cover up with the way the bishops showed us what the paradigm was. And so at the very beginning of Trump's second administration, he said that he was going to assign to Pam Bondi to deal with the credible claims that had been brought against Epstein. That is exactly the word that the bishops have used to hide so much child sex abuse. Oh, well, they'll tell you about the credible claims. Well, that means they're not telling you about all the many claims that they know about and they don't want you to know about. So there's a parallel there. And then there's another parallel where there's this sense, this institutional sense that they have the right to exercise the power to keep these files from the public. And of course, the bishops to this day continue to try to keep their secrets. And the Trump administration is obviously trying to keep as many secrets as it possibly can.
Yeah, we saw that with Bondi in the hearing, the recent hearing, where she appeared wearing her crucifix front and
Yes.
center, as she always does, and does not appear to be candid, telling the truth, or even cordial to any of the questioners. Have you seen that type of behavior before when with regards to clergy, or is this something new?
This was behavior by the Attorney General. I've never seen an Attorney General behave in this childish manner. It was outrageous, but what really was shocking was her complete lack of empathy for the victims that were in the room. She is on the defensive. She doesn't have the heart, the soul to be able to communicate with these survivors. But here's the big problem. She should be interviewing these survivors for evidence.
You've never seen this before at this level.
I have never seen a public official treat victims in public in this way. She acts like she's Teflon for criticism when in fact, what she should be doing is talking to each and every one of these victims and say, were you trafficked to other men? And many of them are saying they were. The administration keeps saying none of that happened. It's not true.
Now, personally, what I saw with Pam Bondi, she was using the cross as a prop. She was using it to disarm the other people. So people say, oh, she must be a religious person. She wouldn't lie. I've seen this in the courtroom numerous times where people will do it and they will be under oath and they will lie, just continue. What is your take on that?
So what's interesting is beginning of the administration, her crosses kept getting bigger. So you just couldn't miss it. And it's a way to curry favor with the president because he is all in with the Christian nationalists, which are part of the Project 2025 concept. And so he just said recently, he said, we are going to reinstitute religion in America. Well, what he means is conservative Christianity. And so she's there signaling to the Republicans that she's part of that important Christian movement. And to the rest of the people in the room, it's kind of a challenge. I mean, everything about her is a kind of an in-your-face, I'm better than you way of acting, which of course makes her look small and pathetic.
And anyone who studied the Bible knows you're supposed to have humility. Christians are supposed to espouse the truth. They're not supposed to lie. They're supposed to hold up people who have been downtrodden. Jesus did that throughout the Bible. So I don't know where they get their version of Christianity, but it's definitely not the authentic one. And
their version of Christianity is anti-abortion and anti-gay. That's the agenda. And so their intent is to stuff their views down our throats by making it law and by taking the power. So it just occurred to me this morning, if we ever wanted a morals revival in the United States, this is in fact the administration that will do it. Because watching the cruelty, watching the shameless grabbing of power by even the religious is, for the American people, I believe in the American people, I think the response is going to be like yours. Wait a minute, humility is a value. It's what we should be talking about, not cruelty. So I do think the pendulum will swing, but right now it's pretty ugly coming out of Washington.
It sure is. And what I see too with the journalists, with Don Lemon, trying to stifle him, Colbert, all these people. Now, you're an expert in the First Amendment and religious liberty and all that. What did you see with regards to Don Lemon being a journalist and doing his work inside a church?
This administration actually believes they have the right or the power to control the narrative. So all of our greatest First Amendment free speech cases are in opposition to what this administration keeps doing. And also the FCC regulations that are coming out from Brendan Carr are ridiculous. He's now saying there has to be equal political time on a comedy show. That's never been true in the history of the United States. The beauty right now, though, is for every time they try to suppress someone, it's backfiring. And Don Lemon has more followers than he's ever had in his career. I mean, it's hilarious. And Colbert is getting more press and all the rest of them. So keep it up, because the courts are doing the right thing on the First Amendment.
Yes.
But like I said, we're at this horrible situation with a completely value-free administration, and it's taking the rest of us to really express our values and be on the higher level than they are.
Yeah, what I see here is institutional betrayal. I've seen it by the churches. I've seen it firsthand, actually. And, I see it by our government, betraying these women and the free speech aspect as well. And also what I see is what they call DARVO, deny, reverse victim offender. Like, I saw Bondi doing that as well, changing the paradigm. That's something that I've seen with clergy do, but obviously now it's happening with the Bondi hearings as well.
Well, the cover-ups of child and adult sex assault always have that quality to them. It always turns into it's the victim's fault, victim blaming. We departed from that 20 years ago. But the ones who are trying to protect the secrets and keep their power love blaming the victims and putting them in a bad light. So these are not good people. Pam Bondi has shown herself to be an absolutely horrible human being. And it's sad that she would be at the head of the DOJ when the Epstein issues are out there. On the other hand, there is no turning back. It's extraordinary. The American people want to know, and now the world wants to know. And we've got changes in leadership in the UK because of shame coming from the Epstein issues. And so I'm very encouraged by the way these things are happening, because it is institutional betrayal. But the response is, well, we're not going to take your betrayal. Do better. Show us more. Be more responsible. So now, this administration should have fired Lutnick ages ago, after everybody understood that he completely lied about his relationship with Epstein, saying he was appalled in 2005, and then he took his kids to the island in 2012.
I was appalled to hear that he took his children there. I mean, one minute you're saying this guy's a weirdo and you never wanted to go back there again, and you're having lunch and doing business with him. But bringing your children to Epstein Island, I mean,
Epstein Island, anywhere Epstein had a pool or a body of water.
I guess in closing, where do you see this going? Do you think there will be more Epstein files coming through? Do you think they'll be digging at the ranch in Utah? No, it wasn't Utah, New Mexico. And do you think that some of the overseas countries will actually do more than the United States? I know that's a lot of questions, but
this is all one piece. We are going to get the truth, just as we've gotten it from the Catholic Church, whether it comes from the state investigations or this newly formed UN committee to investigate, or it comes from the administration. The facts, more and more facts will come out. People shouldn't forget, the survivors are saying that they were trafficked to other men. That, keep your eye on the bouncing ball. That's what we want to pay attention to. And I do think we'll get some answers to that, because the American public is so well educated on these issues at this point, you can't lie to them. And I really, that gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much. This has been an enlightening interview, and I hope we can reconnect once more of the information comes out, and maybe we can have that further discussion.
Would love that. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to thank our guest, Professor Marci Hamilton, for sharing her insights and opinions on American law and the need for statutory reform. I also want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. For more information on today's topic and our guests, visit us online at thelegaledition.com. As always, this information is for educational purposes only. It is not to be construed as legal or personal advice. So please consult a qualified practitioner as your own legal or personal needs. And don't forget, subscribe online. Subscribe on Substack and YouTube, and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and now Blue Sky.